Leave your comments on the Ask Reddit sub, and I'll read your answers on the next episode of LWIAR 2. Serious. People of Reddit who have gone through or are going through cancer. What was the first sign that made you go to the doctor? I felt a pop in my back. It was actually a vertebra breaking. I had severe pain after, and was later diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a blood cancer. That was 5 years ago. And today I am in remission. Yay, congrats, laughing face. Glad to hear it, the remission, that is. My mom has had, yes, lots of back pain. She beat into remission 5 years ago. It came back about 18 months ago. She's now beaten it back to a .01 score. I'm a medical student and I had a patient being treated for multiple myeloma. She was getting out of a kayak and heard a crack, broke her sternum. As someone with AIDS who cracks like a freaking glow stick, this disturbs me. I had what I thought was a stroke and found out I have a glioblastoma. I was given 12 to 15 months and so far I've made it to the 15th month. Keep going. Stay strong, my dude. My grandma was given 6 months for her lymphoma around the time I was born. Nearly 29 years ago. I had coffee with her on Friday. Keep it up, brother. My self-diagnosed IBS was actually a tumor and it hemorrhaged. Stage 4 rectal cancer. I beat that, but it is in my liver now, too big to operate. I am living my best life while I can. Man, I wish you good luck. I also diagnosed myself with IBS. What were your symptoms before the blood? I don't want this comment to get buried. Pro tip. If you ever have blood in your stool that is more than just scraping your butthole on some cheap toilet paper, you need to get this checked out by a doctor. You can get a bad anemia from it and it can be coming from a tumor, an erosion, or a polyp. Source. I'm an MD. Don't just write it off as IBS and ignore it. Please, please, please. Edit. Well, thanks so much for the golden awards. I tried to reply to many of the comments here, but I physically can't get to them all. Let me also say, don't take any of this as official medical advice. The main takeaway from what I have replied to many comments is that the peace of mind that you can get from finding out you don't have X condition is often well worth a history and physical exam and determination on the next diagnostic steps. Not everyone who goes in will need a CT scan and an EGD, colonoscopy. However, someone might, and they might come back clean, and oftentimes that can be as well worth the process as finding something definitive. Doctors are well trained in deciding how and when to work someone up, but you never get the benefit of their training if you don't tell them your story. Every visit has a history and physical in it, and that's often the most important part. Edit number 2. Alright, so I can't physically reply to every comment. I tried to reply to as many as I could. I'm going to get on with my day, but I want to leave you with these final thoughts. Not all blood in the stool orbit is cancer. Some is. Some has other manageable and treatable causes. Why not stop bleeding from your butt if you can? If you're concerned, go to your PCP or get a PCP. ERs and urgent cares aren't a good option because they won't follow you longitudinally. They want to make sure you're not dying and then get you home. And if you're dying, they want to stabilize you, admit you and get you treated. A primary care doctor, i.e., an internal medicine or family medicine trained doctor, can get a thorough history from you, including a history of present illness, past medical history, family history, and social history. They can then do an exam. Yes, this might involve a rectal exam. I'd argue worth it for a diagnosis or non-diagnosis. Get labs, and then integrate all of this information together to find the most and least likely causes. They can then escalate your workup if necessary, and they can continue to follow your symptoms, exam and labs. They can also make sure you're getting the right care. You might be overdue or soonly due for a screening colonoscopy. Anyways, a lot of peace of mind comes from knowing your symptoms are coming from a bacterial infection, stomach ulcer, or hemorrhoid, or even nothing. A negative EGD or colonoscopy provides a lot of information on what you don't have, which is what some people need. Some people are happy simply knowing they don't have a giant tumor in their colon. Also, primary care docs can appropriately direct you to get or not get a procedure. No doctor likes ordering unnecessary tests and procedures, and they're the best one to decide if you would or would not benefit. Don't go them demanding someone puts a camera up your butt and down your throat. Different cameras. If you're unhappy with your care, you can always seek a second opinion. Insurance and healthcare costs in America suck. I cringe every time I see a Reddit post about someone going to the ER and having hundreds, thousands of dollars bill they can't afford. As Scrubs said so eloquently, everything comes down to poo. m.youtube.com. I'm glad you all are taking ownership of your health. But please don't message me for medical advice. I am happy to see and evaluate patients at work, but like you all, I have a life outside of it as well, with my own stresses and expenses, and precious free time. I try to be as nice and helpful as I can be. I like to talk to people and respond. I feel like a jerk for ignoring people, and I don't like feeling like a jerk. Please don't make me feel like a jerk. I hope this toast helped you learn a thing or two. I hope you can get your problems worked up. And I hope everyone stays healthy. Gotta go talk to my doctor. You do. When I was 13, I'm 23 now, I was displaying all the symptoms of colon cancer for about 2 to 3 weeks. As the days wore on, my stool turned more and more into blood until finally it was all blood. My parents wouldn't do anything, so I just waited for it to stop. About a year later, the same thing began happening. This time I forced someone to take me somewhere. After many a doctor visit, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which in fact does present exactly the same way as cancer. And it does make me much more susceptible as I age. Listen to your body. Being proactive now can keep you from having to be reactive later. I've been in remission for almost 10 years now with a healthy diet. Don't get me wrong, I am still fatigued as frick all the time, and sometimes bathroom trips suck. But no active flare-ups. No blood where it shouldn't be. Living comfortably. If you'd like someone to talk to, please reach out, friend. I wish you all the best. Edit. I didn't expect this comment to blow up so much. And not that anyone has said anything like this. But I am 100% not trying to distract from the original point of the post. I just wanted to share my experience to possibly help another person and save them from the long-term repercussions of digestive conditions going untreated. Stupid cologne. So wait, if I only see a little bit on the toilet paper, I'm fine. But if it's in the actual stool, I should get it checked out. Yes, that's because if it's on the paper, it's most likely only external bleeding. A slight tear or little wound around the anus. But if it's in your stool, there is something wrong internally, which could be cancer. PSA, unintended weight loss or finding blood where you normally wouldn't. Get yourself to a doctor. What is it about tumors that causes these two symptoms? Tumor cells replicate very rapidly, so they will consume a ton of sugar, fat, protein to replicate. As they replicate and the tumor grows, its nutrient demands increase, so you now have the nutrient demands of normal tissue and the demands of a tumor. This can lead to caloric deficit and weight loss. This is different than cachexia, which is muscle wasting that occurs in end-stage cancer patients. Tumors also outgrow blood supply and can induce new vasculature growth through cell signaling that often the tumor-induced vessels are leaky or permeable. This can cause abnormal bleeding. Cancer by definition causes a lot of dysregulated growth. So you lose weight because it's using up your energy, nutrients to grow. And it bleeds because part of that growth is it making its own blood supply to give it nutrients and oxygen. These vessels are numerous and abnormal, so they are more prone to bleeding. Making its own blood supply, and WTF. Anytime your body grows, your circulatory system effectively expands to cover it. If you gain a bunch of weight, your body will create more blood vessels so the new tissue can get nutrients and whatnot. If you get a tumor, blood vessels also grow in it because it will hijack some of those nutrients. As a little bit of trivia, one of the reasons that people who are obese tend to have heart issues is because they have more blood vessels to supply blood to. Their heart beats more and or harder to compensate for pushing the blood in greater volumes. They can also experience coldness in their limbs despite having more fat because the blood has a harder time getting to their extremities. Our bodies are really cool but also kind of scary. Yeah, cancer is a freaking nightmare. The only difference between cancer and the monsters from Alien is that cancer doesn't leap out of your chest once it is done with you. I had a persistent pain in the middle of my sternum. Doctors thought it was costochondritis, essentially just inflammation of a joint. I stopped working out and lifting heavy things for 3 months, but it didn't go away. Eventually I started having night sweats and random aches. After I fractured my hip, I got an MRI and biopsy and they diagnosed me with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I got chemo and I've been in remission for 5 years. Edit. I'm seeing a lot of people describing a similar chest pain and getting scared. Not all chest pain is cancer, and not all cancer is chest pain. I felt the pain in my chest because my tumor happened to be growing there. It could just as easily have grown somewhere else. And my story might have started with describing a persistent pain in the middle of my shin. If you're worried about something, talk to your doctor. My dad had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It started as a tickle in his throat, and then he lost his voice. As in he could not talk beyond the strength of a whisper. He chalked it up to a bad throat cold. 5 weeks later, and we finally got him to go to the hospital. Stubborn SOB that he was. Huge tumor put pressure on his vocal cords, which caused him to lose his voice and have difficulties swallowing. He went for chemotherapy, made it through and was in remission for 7 years before it came back. Then chemotherapy and radiation again. Then it came back in his pancreas where he had abdominal pain and other difficulties but did not tell us. Listen to your body, please. As someone who has lost their loved one, if you suspect something is out of the ordinary, do not hesitate to bother the doctor about trivial crap. Be well, take care, and all my best to you and your family. My dad went to the ER after a big bump had formed on his neck overnight. He was prescribed severe rash medication but went back after nothing had worked. Everyone, even the doctors, thought it had been an allergic reaction or some kind of rash, but after testing for other causes, they found that he had had Hodgkin's lymphoma and a 6-inch mass in his chest. It has been over a year. He has finished treatment, and the cancer shows no sign of returning. Edit. Thank you all so much for all the kind words and support. That's wild. Never knew lumps appeared like that. Seen as it was Hodgkin's, I'm guessing the lump itself wasn't actually the cancer but an immune response. Swollen node. I'm a current Hodgkin's patient. From what my oncologist said, the swollen nodes are actually cancerous. When they did my PET scan, it showed 2 cancerous masses in my neck and 1 in my chest. What's wild is toward the end of my very first chemo infusion, I could feel my neck masses shrinking and changing. My 33-year-old husband was diagnosed with inoperable glioblastoma, most aggressive brain cancer, in January 2019, when he was 31. What caused him to get a check was persistent headache that didn't go away with paracetamols and sleep. We discovered the tumors after taking an MRI. Needless to say, our lives were changed forever. Now we are at the end of our journey, and it's been a harrowing experience for me as his wife and caregiver. It's a lonely journey. I don't wish it upon anyone, and no one has any idea what glioblastoma is like, unless they have gone through it. The median survival time is 14 to 18 months. We are on our 18th month now, and given days, weeks left. Every day is a gift, and I'm glad I get to be holding his hands every day. Even if he's resting and sleeping most of the time. As long as he is not in pain, and that the morphine patches are working, that is fine by me. I can't handle him going through any more pain. Edit. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, giving me strength and support, and I'm so blessed to even be receiving all of your kindness. It's such a touchy subject and I'm hurt all the time, but you guys being so kind really makes me cry happy tears. I'm so touched. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel a little bit lifted. And that's more than I can ask for. From the internet, my husband, Victor, would have been so grateful to know that he is loved and supported by more people than he thought he was. Thank you. Heart in edit. The 2nd of August. Victor has passed away yesterday. On the 1st of August, 7:43 p.m. Swedish time. He was surrounded by his brother and me and smiled a lot at the very end. At his final resting position, his face looked relaxed and a little smile can be seen by us too. I am still in shock, processing what has happened to us. I'll take the time I need to process this and grieve. I just miss my husband. I miss his laughs. I miss his smile. I feel loved. I know I'm loved. So that's keeping me together. Thank you so much for your kind support even though we are strangers on the internet. I am both saddened and moved by the generosity of others to offer support, love and to bear their personal pain related to GBM, cancer, loss in general. Thank you. May Victor find peace. I know he's not in pain now. Watched 2 aunts do with uncles and my mom go through this with my dad. Caregiving is exhausting mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Wishing you as much peace as you can find. Seizures. I got seizures out of nowhere during the night. No history of seizures in my family. Got my head screened and they found what they thought to be a benign tumor. Anaplastic astrocytoma. Diagnosed 2 months before my 22nd birthday. Nearing the 5-year mark, though, with no evidence of it returning. My dad had anaplastic astrocytoma and ended up seizing while in a bee suit in the middle of a parade, so that was awkward. Edit. Clarity. My dad was in bed one night and said he felt like he was drowning, then began coughing up blood. That's terrifying. What kind of cancer did he have? He had kidney cancer, but it has spread to his lungs. Is he okay? I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm glad it was a happy ending for the most part, with him getting to do things that he loved with the people he loved. Thanks, I'm just glad we had as much time as we did with him. Last year, March 2019, I, male, 35, woke up in the morning to go to the toilet. I was urinating pure, thick blood with little lumps in it. So after a severe panic attack, it began to hurt like hell. I was throwing up from the pain. After a day in the hospital and some scans and tests later, they told me to call my parents. So you know you're getting some bad news. It turns out it was kidney cancer. They removed my right kidney. Fortunately no other treatments were needed, and I'm living the best life right now. If the tumor in my kidney didn't started to bleed, I would have found out much later. Probably too late. Oh, and also I told myself 2020 was going to be my year. Frick 2020 and frick cancer. So glad you got that fricka removed. Congrats on your recovery and frick cancer indeed. My brother was 11 when he started experiencing symptoms. He started losing a lot of weight. And when he was playing soccer, it looked like he was running through mud and couldn't keep up with everyone else. My parents took him to the pediatrician and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. One day, he woke up and couldn't stop throwing up. When he tried to run to the bathroom, he kept running into the door frame and couldn't walk straight. He said the lights were giving him a headache. We took him to the emergency room and they found that he had a brain tumor and had emergency brain surgery the next day. We were extremely lucky that they decided to do a CAT scan at the ER. Apparently they don't usually do them on kids. 2 brain surgeries and a 1.5 years of chemo later. And he is in remission now. As brutal as the therapy can be for kids and for how scary childhood cancer is in general, I will say I'm glad a lot of pediatric cancers have a good response rate to therapy when caught early. I'm happy your brother is doing well. Oh god, all of your bro's symptoms lined up with my little brother's when he had a blood clot in his brain 6 years ago. He's 16 now. I remember how terrifying that time of his life was. There's nothing worse than seeing someone close to you suffering, then ending up in hospital, then coming out with a gigantic scar on his head. Did your brother go through a personality change too? My little brother used to be so sweet, but now he gets angry at everything. It breaks my heart. Funnily enough, it was a totally unrelated lump. Nope, that lump is fine, just a lipoma. However, we found another lump in the corner of your x-ray and we need to biopsy it. My mum had something pretty close to this. Had a stroke, so lots of scans. One of them just caught the edge of something. Tennis ball-sized mass in her chest. Whack. Turned out it wasn't anything particularly nasty, but it seemed crazy she never knew it was there. Thanks for watching LWIAR 2. The best of all time r/AskReddit submissions and comments. If you like this video, check out the original LWIAR channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe.